and welcome to Behind the Dean's Desk, conversations from the College of Graduate and Professional Studies at the Chicago School. I'm Dr. Alicia DeWalt, Dean of the College of Graduate and Professional Studies. This series is designed to highlight our community voices, ideas, and professional impact that shape our graduate and professional programs. In each episode, we step away from formal titles and curricula to have a real conversation about the work we do, why it matters, and how it connects to practice in the field. Well, welcome everyone. Today I'm joined by Tiffany Rush Wilson, faculty and program chair in the Counselor Education Department within our College of Graduate and Professional Studies. So Tiffany's work spans counselor education, clinical practice, mentorship, and advocacy with a focus on culturally responsive care, psychological safety, and preparing future counselors to connect theory, research, and real-world practice in a truly meaningful way. So welcome, Tiffany. We're so glad to have you on Behind the Dean's Desk.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you for asking me.
Absolutely. Tiffany, I would love to get us started with just hearing how you got here. How did you get into academia? Why counseling specifically? Can you share a bit of your journey?
Interesting things. How did I get here? Into mental health. I've always wanted to be here. Had some really childish early influences, like Lucy from Peanuts, had a psychiatry stand for 5 cents. So I thought that was influential. And then I had some experiences meeting different people with different circumstances throughout middle school and high school, people who needed psychological supports in different ways. I got to be a part of that. Even once in high school, I was taken out of a class and taken down to a psychiatric ward at a hospital because a friend of mine had an episode and was hospitalized and wanted to talk to me. And I ended up being this kid in 10th grade taken out, get to this hospital. My dad is there. My grandmother is already there because they didn't want me to be by myself, but wanted me to be able to support this kid who wasn't even really my friend at that point. He just sat next to me in class, but for some reason wanted to be connected to me. So life brought me here. Yeah. And
How did
Lucy
you get
from
into
Peanuts.
higher education and connecting? I know we'll talk about your clinical work and those pieces, but how did you make the journey into higher education as faculty?
By accident. I am the child, the niece, the great niece of many teachers. So the education piece, I guess, is not a surprise. My mother actually always probably thought I'd end up being a teacher too, like her, like my aunts. However, this started when I was invited initially to co-teach a class at the university where I got my master's degree.
Okay.
And then during my doctoral program, during the internship piece, I did some clinical work and then was invited to teach at that exact same university. And then initially taught there for the first couple of years of my career, finishing my doctorate, and then right after the doctorate, and then moved from there into online education. So being in that university setting, university counseling centers, and moving back over to the academic component of a school that I really, really liked. I loved where I did my master's, and liking seeing future counselors and passing the torch to these people who wanted to be in the position that I was really just grounding myself in at the time. Yeah.
That's so great. So another generation of education in your family, educators in your family.
Yes.
Yeah. That's funny. I had a similar experience with my mom was a principal for many, many years in her career. And I always told her I will never be in education, not my world. And here we are, right?
As soon as you say never, that's when the path, your trajectory changes. Yes, exactly.
Well, Tiffany, I know you are program chair in one of our largest online departments, counselor education. I'd love to hear just a bit about the two programs that we offer within that division. Can we start with the Masters of Clinical Mental Health Counseling and just share, some outcomes, maybe like best fit for students, why the online modality? Could you share a bit about it?
Yes, counseling is an amazing field. One of the things, and I may have shared this with you before, is an analogy I call the mental health sisters. that I generated back when I was in my doc program. And it came because one of the master students asked me which program they were in, because there's counseling, there's social work, there's marriage and family
Right.
therapy, there's different programs. And this person didn't really understand that. Really, really quickly, what I told her was like medicine and philosophy, went to like a sports bar, met each other, liked each other, decided to date, and they had kids, and they had five of them. The oldest one they named psychiatry. She's very smart, a little bit into drugs, but she can get things done, but kind of independent. And then the next one was psychology, who was kind of like psychiatry, had her own thing going on a little bit too, but seemed to be a little bit annoyed sometimes by the fraternal twins underneath her, social work and counseling, because they were all into like quinoa burgers and health and all this stuff that seemed to be a little bit annoying to their slightly older sister, but similar. And then
Hmm.
mom came home with this new baby that they thought was weird, named marriage and family therapy. And people were like, why do we need her? We can do that. So a lot of tension in the house. So psychiatry would like get the car keys and just leave. So everybody else had to walk to school. Psychology used up all the hot water in the shower. So marriage and family therapy, social work and counseling couldn't take a shower that was warm, but they had quinoa pancakes they wanted everybody to try and nobody wanted them. And then marriage and family therapy wanted everybody to get together and join and talk about it. So just chaos in the house. But on the cul-de-sac where there are other disciplines like mathematics or geology or law, if any of them said anything about the mental health sisters, all of them would turn on you and fight you to the death, because they had so much in common, but they had some differences. For
Right.
me, back to your question, one of the things that people in counseling have to be aware of is the focus really is counseling. We are really here to help people identify their needs. What do they want? How do they achieve their goals within healthy, ethical, legal parameters? What are you envisioning? What works for you? So, while the other disciplines also have connections and similarities in some ways, each one has its own focus. Counseling really is focused on figuring out who you are, how to get you in the healthiest way in a position to identify and reach your own goals. One of the things that counseling allows, and some of the other mental health sisters, or it could be mental health siblings, and their cousins, and the metaphor goes
Oh
on and on and
yeah,
on.
I love it.
Yeah. But one of the things that you can do in this field is have an independent practice license at the master's level, which is what our CMHC program trains future clinicians to do. One of the awesome things about this program, and I've taught at a couple of other programs too, so programs handle this differently. One of the things that we do, and we do really well, is have a program that is remote that doesn't feel remote. We know our students, we see them. We don't only see them at residencies, which, roughly the seventh class and 14th class in the program is the
Hmm.
3-day residency during the fourth week of the individual or group counseling skills course. In addition to that, we see our students via Zoom meetings in our live discussions during office
Right.
hours. We connect with them, we know who they are. And that part sets us aside from some other places with which I'm familiar. So we're preparing them for practice, but we're also preparing them for connection, for networking, for knowing who your faculty members are, what we do, how we do it here at the Chicago School really feels connected. So we don't go into a residency where there are 500 students. We have our individual classrooms and we know them. We share our clinical experiences with them so they know what things to expect, what things they may want to avoid, how to
Hmm.
maybe not fall into this particular pitfall that maybe I fell into or a colleague fell into or a case that's going on in the media or the news or something. We want them to
Right.
understand the realities of working with people and some of the things that might be even kind of scary. Like, what do you do if you have a client who is really in a place where they can't keep themselves safe and they're depending on you? How do you know how to properly support this person and keep them protected, but keep yourself protected as
Right.
well? It's frontline work at the master's level in counseling, and we prepare our students for that with a warning that all of our students need to be aware of. This program is not a substitute for your own need for personal counseling. Counselors sometimes still need the support outside of their program.
Yeah.
That is a focus in our master's program. The people who support those counselors who come out of a master's program, those supervisors, those agency leads, those other clinicians often have doctorates in counselor education and supervision. In our
Right.
doctoral program, we are training people to be who we are right now. People who can teach, who can research with an emphasis on the research piece too. People who can do advocacy work, people who can carry the baton to the finish line in this field. People who can understand that counseling is a real profession. It is really based on research, on experience, on rigor. I guess that's the word I was looking for, based on rigor.
Yeah.
And one of the things that's awesome in CES programs, and in particular ours, is those doctoral students who are in the classroom studying, even though it's an electronic classroom, so to speak, are also still interacting with their faculty and with the master students so that they're able to learn what we're doing by doing it with us. So we provide them internship opportunities within the program to learn how to co-teach, to learn how to interact with students, to learn what grading looks like under the watchful supervision of a faculty member who is supervising them while they're supervising the master students. So there's this parallel process happening constantly throughout the program. So that they're always moving pieces and parts. And then with 8-week terms that are really 7 weeks in a day, but 8-week terms, there's constant motion. I
Right.
like that.
Yeah. I I appreciate how intentional your division is in developing that community and just reducing that transactional distance, right? You have students across the country that are continually coming together at both the master's level and that doctoral level, and having the levels of supervision and support, I think just makes such a vibrant learning space, but also just this dynamic community that you all have created. So thank you. Tiffany, I'd love just to hear quickly about, I think there's always questions on like, how does practicum or internship work when you're an online student? Can you explain that process?
Yes, so it works in two different ways. At the master's level, just roughly, they are doing clinical work, practicum, and internship in the location where they are located. So let's say I'm a Cleveland person. I'm doing my prac or my internship in Ohio, in Cuyahoga
Hmm.
County, so where Cleveland is. I'm going to find that site. I've got 100 hours of practicum that I'm going to have to do, and then 600 hours of internship. 40% of those hours are going to be me directly working with my clients under the supervision of two people, the supervision of my site supervisor in Cleveland, and then under the supervision of my faculty member at the Chicago school virtually. And we're going to meet on a Monday night with my class for an hour and a half each week. And they're going to help process cases through the school end. And then at my site, we're going to process cases in person. So the way that this works here virtually is the same way it works at an on-ground institution.
Yeah.
That's the same way prac and internship worked for me um, when I was a student. The other thing to keep in mind too is with that experience, you still have an advisor. You still have people who are making sure that you are ethically sound in the way that you approach the work you're doing with the clients you're supporting at the master's level. But you are very heavily supervised, as one needs to be, not only to protect the client, but to protect the program and, of course, to protect that actual clinician in training
Right. Thank you.
at the master's level. Yeah. And that prepares them for licensure. At the doctoral level, we provide those internships for them here in the program, and they are preparing to become instructors, but the doctoral students are often already licensed. So the
Right.
outcome's a
Okay.
little bit different. Yes.
Nice. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Um, Tiffany, what is energizing you the most right now in your role? What are you most excited about that you'd like to talk through?
I find a lot of this exciting. What am I most
Yeah.
excited about with work? Um, I'm involved with a couple of projects professionally that I'm excited about, and then some of the connections when I can see the work that I do academically bridge into the work I do outside of the university, both energize me. So I guess there are two answers to that.
Okay. Well, let's talk about that. Okay, so first, what projects are you working on within the Chicago School or that research side of your work that you'd like to share?
I am working with another faculty member. He's the lead on it, another faculty member who's at our Dallas campus, and several students on a book chapter. And we're looking
Oh,
at
nice.
some issues, yeah, related to um, culture. I'll broadly
Okay.
call them culture. And we are editing right now, and I think we're right about the stage of this getting out there. So we're looking at experiences of people who are having bicultural interactions. We'll call it that. So fingers are crossed there. And
Nice.
then
It's
I'm
exciting.
excited about a couple other things. I have a textbook that's doing really well about skills, and students are liking that. At least that's the feedback that we're getting, which is nice.
Hmm.
And there's another publication that was released this year. So I'm really excited about that. And that one's on eating disorders, which is a specialty area
Area of
of mine.
yours.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. You're also, okay, I want to talk about your clinical work outside of the school, but within your program chair role, you also spend a lot of time mentoring faculty, correct? And like
Yes.
supporting promotion process or developing professionally. Can you talk about like what effective mentorship looks like in that role and how you work through that work with faculty?
It's really interesting. Mentorship. So there's the formal piece, like, let's schedule at some point during the term a one-on-one meeting with different faculty members. Let's talk about what you want. Let's talk about your goals. So that's the formal piece. It has to be there. And that's fine.
Hmm.
That's exciting. I like that. The more interesting piece is kind of like the one-off impromptu call where a person, I'm thinking of one in particular, I'm ready to apply for promotion. I've never done this. How should I do it? And we talked about how you map things out and what things you want to include and how you might want to word things and looking at that process for this person. And then they were recently, this was an adjunct faculty, awarded the promotion they requested and how exciting that was. And like, that's the kind of stuff I really enjoy. And sometimes it's outside of business hours. To me, that's okay because people might be working after their kids go to sleep. And that's one of the
Right.
things that allows for flexibility here
Hmm.
is that we can kind of move office hours and maybe I'll have lunch at 4 instead of at 12 because I had something else to do and work a little bit later, earlier. However, the schedule works out, the time can be put in a little bit creatively, but sometimes that movement of time and rescheduling allows you to work with this person and see them meet their goal and be awarded promotion or see their chapter get published or their publication um, be completed or whatever it is that they're trying to do. You can see the end point for their goal. And that I really like
Yeah.
a
And
lot.
I think too about like building their confidence, right? As
Yes.
emerging educators or taking that next level in what your educational voice or leadership voice looks like and having that
Yes.
mentorship, I could see as being so critical and yet and so rewarding too as these new educators are coming up.
Yes. Which
Yeah.
is it's fun too. Another
Yep.
thing that I really like seeing is we have conferences here, virtual conferences, and I try
Hmm.
really hard every year to present with students. And it's really cool to see how excited they are and how invested they are and how professional they can be with creating their presentations for the conferences. That's
And you
another,
doing that mentorship with students too, then, right? And
yes.
building their confidence as emerging clinicians, future clinicians.
Once we did it
It's
as a
great.
class. Class was small, so everybody
Wow.
participated, and we presented each person's little segment at the virtual conference as a class. There were 6 of us. That's awesome. It feels great to do that.
And your virtual conference is coming up really soon too, right? Is
Yes,
it
it
next
is.
week, the
We're
ninth,
coming. Yeah, we
ninth
are
year?
right here.
Fantastic. Good. Okay, well, let's talk about the work that you do outside of the classroom. As you know, the Chicago School Mission, we have engaged practitioner model. So being able to engage in this work, this clinical work outside of the classroom and bringing it back to our students and bringing it back to the research and that work is so important for us and how we're training the next generation of students. Could you talk a bit about what you do outside of the classroom?
Yeah, outside of the classroom, I do a couple of things. I have a private practice, and then I also work with professional athletes. So there are two different areas that are kind of connected and then sometimes not. So the athletes, of course, always have their athletic orientation, but they're still human beings.
Mm.
And what I focus on with the athletes is the human perspective, the human parts, the family connections, like how they are feeling, how they are managing just existing in a high pressure world. Moving into my own practice, the same thing happens. The athletic piece is removed, but still humans who are living in a high pressure world and how they manage it, how they connect and survive. So I have, one particular day of the week is the busy day because all three things that I do show up on that particular day. So there's actually a specific driving path and everything that I do to make sure that everything is, managed on time. But I love being able to see what I teach be used and applied to these scenarios, these situations in an office with people and see them have an effect, to see them be useful and see people come out on the other side of whatever issue they've presented and feel like they can manage their own lives. So it almost feels like in some ways counseling is involves some of the same skills you use when you teach someone to ride a bike,
Mm.
and it has training wheels, and then it has one training wheel, and then they're riding the two-wheeler and they can manage it on their own, and they believe they can manage it on their own. Some of them get so advanced that they're like on the unicycle, and we're doing things and we're moving further and further into letting people, or supporting people, not letting them, supporting people as they develop the confidence to know that they can manage things on their own, but to celebrate that they knew when to ask for support to do it.
And then how does that work, Tiffany, influence your work as an educator? How do you bring it back to the classroom or bring it back to your research?
Interesting. I'm glad you asked that question. So, one of the things I've taken away from working with athletes and high profile clients, that's kind of the bucket, is that these people have like a shiny, cool job, but at core, they're people. They have the same issues, questions, concerns, types of experiences, maybe presented sometimes differently, but at core, the same types of issues that any other human can have. My training involved working with relatively affluent people and then with relatively under resourced people and poorer people in my academic experience. And to see that there are sometimes perceived gaps in training for how to manage these quote unquote special populations, which aren't special populations. These are still people who have maybe some odd circumstances or special circumstances,
Right.
inspires me to make sure that's included in the curricula that I am attached to. I think it's really important to be able to meet people where they are, kind of a Vygotskian type thing, meet
Hmm.
someone where they are and support them to get to where they need to be. So I do see a direct relationship between what I teach and then what I do, and then what I teach back to what I do. There's a back and forth ebb and flow.
Yeah, I like the intentionality of how that works for you. I can just like picture this, right?
Yes.
In your work. I think then like flipping this when we have students who are first just learning the theory, are practicing their interviewing skills, are practicing their
Mhm.
clinical skills in the classroom in a safe space. One, I want to talk about how we create those safe spaces, but I'm curious on how what students are surprised about when they move from like theory to then application when they're out
Mhm.
in the practice. And then I can see this like cyclical piece too, right? They're in the practice, they're going back to their coursework. But what have you seen as a faculty for students?
That same piece where they are thinking, oh, this wasn't just some thing you needed us to learn and memorize. I'm actually doing this particular thing. This actually does work. And oh, research is not just some torture device that you were forcing us to do. Research actually is applicable and supportive of what helps people improve. One of the things that came up actually at one of the external places where I do some clinical work is the whole idea that there's a whole lot more discussion around anti-intellectualism now and pushing people away from like this stuff doesn't matter and seeing that, wow, it really does matter. I really want to know why I feel better when my clinician approaches this concern in this way. Oh, this is why I have to keep this journal. Oh, this is why I have to do these homework assignments. This is why I have to do these things and why I actually feel better. This is why every day I'm taking notice of tiny improvements or backsliding so that I can continuously move forward. Yes, this is exactly why we do these things because these things have been studied. We know that there are outcomes that support this particular modality works for this particular presentation. These things are real. And I like to see our master's students make those connections, especially in the field courses where they can go, oh, this is why we have to learn this thing.
Mm-hmm.
Or it is not my responsibility to talk the whole time I'm in session. Sometimes my silence is a tool. So those types of things are awesome to see.
Yeah. And then they go and experience it, and then you have your
Yes.
supervision, and they've finally gone through
Yeah.
that. That's great. And then so then going back to my other thought with like creating psychological safety for our students. I mean, there's a lot that's happening in their educational journey. Like one practicing these skills, that takes a level of safety to be comfortable in being able to do that with your peers or doing that at residency. And then coming back too into supervision, right? And maybe things didn't go very well with your client and having to talk through those pieces and where we can do better, improve, or and learn more. How do we, as faculty, like create that safe space for these students to be vulnerable, to be open to learning, to trying new things in their as they're learning in their careers?
There are two things that come to mind instantly.
Okay.
One is just the discussion around that. Just to
Yeah.
say this is a safe place. Do know you will make mistakes, and that's part of learning. When you learn to walk, hopefully you didn't just get up when you were 7, 8, 9 months old and just walk away. You stumbled, you fell, you had to figure it out, but eventually
Hmm.
you got it and you made fewer mistakes. And ideally, you can, walk now or speak now. You made errors or whatever types of skills that you use in your daily life. You had to learn to do many of those things. This is the same. You will make mistakes. You will make errors. You will have fumbles. You will trip. Those things will happen. And that's a part of that process. You did not get in a car and just drive away. You had to learn to do these things.
Hmm.
That explicit conversation is one of the tools that I think is imperative when working with students who are learning that mistakes happen and they're part of the process. The other thing is actually sharing some of your own mistakes as a clinician. Things
Hmm.
that you've done that kind of didn't land well. I have a couple of those mistakes and even went and found I didn't have to find her, my clinical supervisor, and let her know I'm going to share these things that I did. And she didn't care. She helped me out of them, but wanted her to know that if she develops a fan club, it'll be because Lisa was the most amazing supervisor. So
Hmm.
sharing like how I even more recently have gone back to her when there was something I wasn't so sure about, even though I've been licensed twice for years, going back and
Yeah.
asking for help, knowing that it is okay to say, this thing feels shaky. I don't want to do this by myself. And identifying ways in which things could have gotten worse for you if you hadn't asked for, help and support. So I've gone back and, I do occasionally still check in with my clinical supervisor, let her know. I still put her, at least her first name out
Yeah.
there. Every once in a while, I name drop her entire name. Um, because there were ways when I was in training that she really helped me see things differently. I would not have known to do some things had it not been for Lisa Green, who was really an awesome, awesome supervisor.
Yeah. It's so I'm just thinking about my own journey in that
Mhm.
work, and it's just such a special time in your graduate program to go through that process. I'm just reminiscing on that. There's so much growth that's happening in such a short amount of time. By you talking about you're still growing, you're still going back to your clinical supervisor. I think that's really
Yeah.
powerful that we still don't have all the answers, right?
Yes. And
Yeah,
we shouldn't. There was another
right.
person I worked with who told me she will never go without connecting with other people because you need that. You need other
Yeah.
perspectives. So I do that too. I've had an amazing group of professionals around me who I bounce ideas off of from time to time, pretty frequently,
Yeah.
to see how might you handle this type of situation, and they do it back. It's
Hmm.
kind of like with DBT when you collaborate and ask and connect with your colleagues to make sure that you're consulting properly, which helps your treatment of your clients and also you're settling yourself to make sure that you can still function inside and outside of your clinical setting.
Yeah. Um, we're getting close to the end of our time, but I have two more questions for you.
Okay.
So one, Tiffany, I'd love to hear just looking back at your journey, and I feel like we've been just exploring your journey through this conversation. And so I just really appreciate you sharing. But looking back on your journey so far, what continues to reaffirm for you that this is the work that you're meant to do? This is the place you are supposed to be.
It's an interesting question. I work with, well, my initial specialty was eating disorders, specifically in women of color, because there was not a lot of research, not a lot of work done in that area. And sometimes when I am in clinical work and even in the classroom, I will have somebody who thanks me for existing in a space because they didn't expect to see a person of color or a woman, once even short person, which I thought was pretty funny. But to feel like I'm representing something that lets people know doors can be open, that is inspiring to me because I think there is a place for everybody in
Hmm.
this world. Any type of person who needs support can be helped by feeling represented in whichever way they identify in this health space, and that people can't find clinicians or researchers or instructors, professors who represent some facet of them is something that motivates me to continue and to encourage everybody to try to be in this space because everybody needs to feel seen.
Yeah,
Feel seen sounds funny, but everyone needs to be seen.
right. Thank you for sharing that. Okay, my last question is my typical question that I ask for behind the dean's desk. So, as we are stepping away from titles and roles in this conversation, what's one thing you hope people better understand about counseling, education, human connection, and why it matters beyond the classroom, beyond that therapy room?
That counseling, that education are things that help keep us healthy. Knowledge is power. I tell my clients movement is medicine, laughter is medicine. There are all these things that we experience every day that keep us in a space where we can function well and function to our own potentials. So, what I would hope people take away is it is okay to seek help. It is okay to aspire toward being healthy. It's okay to question things. It's okay to exist and be who you are and have some goal and some direction for where you want to eventually be. Always keep the finish line, in your view, but understand the experiences you are having right now. So be here so you
So
can
well
get
said.
there. Thank
So
you.
well said, Tiffany. Thank you so much. Thank you
Thank
just for sharing
you.
your insights, for sharing your journey, talking through the programs that we offer and the wraparound support. I can just I can feel it. I can feel the community talking to you, and I just appreciate you sharing. So thank you
Thank
so much.
you. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely.